Have you ever wondered what is intuitive eating and how you can implement it in your life? There's a lot of buzzwords out there about being an intuitive eater. And if you want to learn about this, well, then welcome to the Mindset Mirror Connection podcast. In today's episode, we're going to give our take on intuitive and what I call sustainable eating, which you will hopefully walk away with a better understanding of how to begin this process and do it in a way that is more sustainable than you might just read on the internet. So if you're ready, listen up and lean in as we elevate your mind. I've got beef with the intuitive eating world, and you guys will learn about that today.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to get into it because intuitive eating has a lot of information. Mm-hmm. There is this kind of, I think of intuitive eating and the way they've set it up, almost like 75 hard. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've got to do this and then do this and do this and do this. But it's not, there is no perfection in this process. But I want to start with why I have beef with intuitive eating as it's laid out, because oftentimes, now I'm not talking to the healthy person who is very aware of what's going on in their bodies. If that's you, go read the internet and follow the steps. But from my perspective, most of our clients are not that person. And most of our clients actually have no clue what is going on in their bodies at any given time. Mm-hmm. Especially not their hunger and fullness cues. And so where intuitive eating sometimes lacks is teaching someone how to have like interoceptive awareness. And so it wants you to have interoceptive awareness. So understanding what's going on internally, that's what it's based out of. However, for me, you've got to establish that a routine around creating the awareness first, that the rules of intuitive, I call them rules, they call them principles of intuitive eating, assume you already have. So that's where my beef is with it. Because a lot of our clients, they're like, I don't know how I feel. How many times do you hear that? I don't know.
All the time.
I don't know how I feel. I don't know what I think about that. I don't know what my boundary is there. Do I need a boundary there? I don't know what I don't know what it feels like outside of these rules I've created for myself, overachieving, pleasing others, caretaking others. Like, I don't know what that is, because that's right now, that's what my body's telling me to do. My brain is telling me to do. And I do it. Right.
Sometimes I see intuitive eating used as a way to excuse behavior that we don't want to address. Right. Meaning,
tell me more.
Meaning that, so for example, I practice intuitive eating. I just listen to my body, but then it's like, I'm going to have that cake. And then they have a lot of the cake, and then the rest of their day isn't really balanced. And they're not assessing, because one of the keys of of intuitive eating is doing the assessment of how that food made me feel. Mm-hmm. And it's more so of, okay, well, if you're having the cake because I just want the cake and like my body does it well, and I have Oreos every night because that's just like what my body's responding to. And then they're concerned about weight loss, or they want to lose weight. They haven't done the assessment piece of, do Oreos actually make me feel good at the end of the night? Or am I having Oreos because I want to cope with like an emotional part, or because I'm going against a rule or regulation that I made up in the past that now I'm overcompensating for it too. Right. So it's like crappy behavior.
Right. And it is. It's about, I can eat what I want whenever I want. Mm-hmm. And there are certain people who follow intuitive eating that take it this step further. So I want to shout out those folks who take it the step that I'm going to take it, or we're going to take it. Because I was talking to a client who worked with a coach that was all body positivity, eat whatever you want, whenever you want, intuitive eating. And she told me the other day, she goes, I realized that program opened me up to this all mentality. All mentality. And it was, but accept your body and it's okay if you have all of these things. And we know that it's, when I say not okay, we know it because we see people who have high cholesterol, cardiovascular disease, diabetes.
Right.
And so if our bodies were designed that way, then we wouldn't have these physiological responses that say, hey, wait, too much
Right.
here, right? And so we talked about this with the body dysmorphia of like the self-respect aspect of things, which we'll talk about, but I want to address this. So what is intuitive eating, right? So it encourages individuals to listen to their body's hunger and fullness cues, the satisfaction around food, rather than external diet rules, which we agree with. But how the hell am I supposed to listen to something that I don't have a relationship with?
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to add a pre-step to this to everyone listening, and then we're going to go through the 10 principles that is going to help with that. But like we talk about intuitive, so you're going to see that we agree with some of this, and we also have adapted some of this. Can we say it that way?
Sure.
Great. It removes good and bad labels, which we do, right? And it emphasizes, again, that body respect and connection, which we do, and being able to create trust in the self. So one of the things that we teach very early on is creating a routine around just listening to yourself. Just listening as an observer, watching a movie, listening to your thoughts, the bad ones, the good ones, the automatic ones, the mean ones. Oh, we all have those. You're like, did I just say that? No. Having a practice, even setting an alarm to just check in. What is my body's, what are my thoughts going? What emotions do I feel? And for some of you, again, we may have to take that a step further. Well, how do I know what emotions I feel? So I've created an activity called What is My Reality? That I will give to certain clients, especially my clients in eating disorder recovery, where we go from a very granular level. What are my senses sensing? When, how is my body responding to that? My heart rate is up. I am, my palms are sweaty. Then where are my thoughts? Oh, this is scary. I don't like this. Then I give them a list. Then based on what our senses, so right, what are we making up of the world? How is our body physically responding? How is our body telling us? What are the thoughts? Then I give them a list of emotions. What emotion might this be? And that to some people may be like, well, I should already know that. But if you don't, you don't. And so setting an alarm to go through this process of understanding your reality. And it could just be, you could simply start with this at a very easy level of like taking your pulse. I'm sitting and listening to my body. I'm feeling something in my body. And then building from there, right? If your mouth is dry, you get some water, right? If you're tired, maybe take a nap. This is all you kind of listening to your body. But again, from a process perspective, I have to stop and listen. And again, setting an alarm, doing that for, twice a day for maybe 1 to 2 months, you'll begin to understand where your thoughts go, your emotions go, how that feels in your body. And that will allow you to become intuitive when it comes to hunger and fullness. What would you add to that?
I think it'll be incredibly difficult for someone to set an alarm and sit and pause and think about it when so much of our culture is focused on rushing food. So that's going to have to take intention.
It doesn't have to be food.
Or rushing, listening to your body. We'll say that.
Okay. Yeah.
So rushing, doing a check-in. So I would, and actually, I'm glad you said that, because that makes me want to make the point of maybe the best time to start this isn't during a meal.
No.
Yeah, so maybe yeah, so maybe the best time to set this alarm is maybe after you've gotten settled in for work and before you start the work day, right?
Mhm.
Before you start getting in the task. Or maybe the best time to set this alarm is when you're getting in bed at night. So kind of
Mhm.
those easy slots where you can slide it in before you're trying to do something, because I could see where a client sets an alarm at 10:30, and that's usually the busiest part of their day, and so they ignore the alarm, and therefore ignore the I don't want to say assignment, but the process of this.
My
So,
favorite time to do it is on the toilet.
oh, there you go. That's a good time.
Do it on the toilet.
Yeah.
Don't take
I
your
guess
stupid phone in there. Just
yeah.
every time you sit on the toilet, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? Where's my attention going?
There we go. Okay. So
Toilet.
that would be my only comment to add.
No.
Other than that.
Well, when I was on Mind Pump, Sal had made that comment. He goes, for some of you listening out there, sitting and setting an alarm and listening to your body sounds ridiculous.
Mhm.
And he was just like, but it is going to be the only, I'm paraphrasing what he said. It's going to be the only way for you to do this, right? Like, you didn't learn math because you just sat in the class.
Right.
You learned math because you listened, and it was boring. It was annoying, but now you know math. Some of you.
Kind of. Kind of. We kind
Not
of.
us.
I
was not listening.
Yeah, I was not. I had to repeat.
And see where we are with that.
Mhm.
And so before you start intuitively eating, and I ask clients all the time, like, I'm just going to intuitively eat. And I'm like, do you even know what that means?
No. They just think I'm just going to eat aware, like how I feel. And that's the other thing too, is they don't know what it means. And this is not to shame y'all, but say you are having the Oreo every night. Are you having the Oreo every night because you enjoy the Oreo every night, or because you're not eating enough and so your body's looking for quick acting sugar, or because we're emotionally eating, or all the above?
Or we just made it a routine. I have a client who will track her drinks before she even has them.
Oh.
But and so it's like, well, I'm going to have 5 drinks. And you're just determining I'm having 5 drinks instead of maybe I'll have 2 drinks.
Yeah.
Now I get why, she's overestimating, but with this specific client, and this is not true for all my clients who track their drinks, she really drinking has controlled her life very much so.
So now
And
she
so
has
I'm
control of it.
So it's well, why are we setting ourselves up for, she went out of town with friends and was like, it's going to be a shit show. Well, why are we setting ourselves up for a shit show? I went out of town with my friends. It was not a shit show. In the past, could it have been? Absolutely. In the past, has it been? Yes. But this time I realized it doesn't have to be.
Right.
If I tell myself that, then I'm going to expect that. Right. So the Oreo, if I'm always putting in the Oreo, and I'm going to, it almost becomes like a conditional response to having the Oreo too. So good. All right. So let's go through these 10 rules. So intuitive eating.
Principles.
My bad. Is Evelyn Tribble and Elsie?
I think it was supposed to be Elise and then autocorrect.
Elise Resch.
Yeah.
Number 1, reject diet mentality. These are unsustainable and can lead to negative impact on physical and mental health. So rejecting the diet mentality. Now, let's break this down. Diet is what you eat. So, that's what it is. Diet mentality is diet culture of restrict food, eat a little amount of food, don't have certain foods, don't eat after a certain time. It is these, again, when we say unsustainable, yes, from a behavioral perspective, but literally from a physiological, keeping your motherfucking ass alive perspective. So reject diet mentality. And so we're going to reframe that. Reject, how will we say this? Reject eating in very restrictive ways. Can we say that?
Sure. Why not?
And labeling foods as good or bad.
Okay.
Yep. That's
number
my
dose.
Dose.
Honor hunger. So they attribute this to recognize and respond to body to build trust. I agree, because if I'm hungry, I need to be aware that I'm hungry. And this is interesting, something that Samantha Jerome, the dietitian, and I were talking about at one point, and I think you and I have talked about it, is people have different hunger signals. And so yours might be angry, agitated. Mine might be lethargic and tired. And someone else's might be ravenous and they'll just eat whatever they want, whatever's in front of them too. So this is, again, going back to the intuitive part of, we need to be aware of what our hunger signal is. Am I hungry because I haven't eaten, or am I hungry out of an emotional response too?
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Yeah,
That's important there.
Yes.
Right. We don't talk about that part, because for a lot of you, you're like, well, I'm fucking hungry all the time. My body's telling me I'm hungry all the time.
right.
You know, and creating trust is, as you said, knowing what true hunger feels like and what emotional hunger feels like too. So like you said, what is my hunger when I'm actually hungry? And then what is my hunger when I'm emotional? I think that's good.
Yes.
Number 3, make peace with food. Eat without guilt, restriction. There are no off limits. Now, reframe. Remix.
I know.
So, yes, absolutely. Eat without guilt or restriction. 1000%. You should feed your body. Your body needs food to survive. There are no off limits. And I'm going to say, but see, for someone who struggles with binge eating and emotional eating, for someone who struggles with all or nothing thinking, even, you know, if I gave a perfectionist this, they'd be like, well, there's nothing off limits. So
I know.
I'm going to eat however. So I don't like the word, I'm not going to say within limits either. It is feeding your body in a way that serves you physically and mentally. Physically, I know that I need nutrient-dense foods, as well as I need to eat my pleasurable foods in a way that doesn't make me feel sick. Even nutrient-dense foods, you could probably eat too. Like if I eat too many blueberries, which I love, I get a little bit of sour stomach, right?
Really?
Yes, because I will eat the whole thing of blueberries because I love them so much. I don't know why they come in the little boxes. I could eat this whole thing.
I know.
I love them. So physically, also, like if I'm going to have my, piece of cake, I know that after a certain point, I get a little bit of bellyache or I feel very inflamed. And then mentally, I eat foods that bring me joy, that connect me with my family, that I can have that experience with my children. And so that's, again, I know you guys have heard the sustainable eating that that's my preferred focus when it comes to changing your relationship with food, is the sustainable. So that's how I would remix that is, yes, no food guilt or restriction. No, there are no off limits,
but
making sure your body feels mentally and physically well after the meal.
Okay.
That's would you add anything to that? Cool.
Number 4, challenge the food police. The rules from diet culture are to be challenged to create a more positive relationship. This is hard, in my opinion, because we don't know that there are rules from diet culture that we're following. And that's probably one of my favorite assignments that clients do is the rules and restrictions, because they go through it and they click all of the things. They click a lot. It's very rare. Yeah, it's very rare that they click 1 or 2. And then towards the end of the assignment, they start to see like, oh my gosh, I did not know that these rules that I've adopted from other diets or other social media or my mother or whomever or whatever were essentially guiding me in my decisions.
Yes.
So this is where I would say probably both of us say, yes, we should challenge that. But to do that, again, we have to have the foreknowledge that you are living in those rules. And there are new rules that come out, every quarter, essentially. It seems like the dieters.
New rules, the diet culture. We should do reels on that.
And they release them and go, here's what we're going to talk about for the next 3 months. And then in 3 months, we'll change it. right?
Yeah, that's so fucking true. We should do a reel where like we're the diet culture committee and we're like
with all
coming out
and be like, like I'll wear like a Weight Watcher shirt. You could wear like a Mediterranean, because even Mediterranean has some stuff to it too, right? Like
or
overall,
I could be that one diet that's all shakes.
yeah. See, okay, so that's what we're talking about, or like a fasting one or a juicing one, like all that shit.
Right.
So, but you don't know that that's happening. Like, for example, I'll get clients who say, "Oh, I intermittent fast. I don't eat lunch until noon." And I'm like, "Well, why do you do that?" And they're like, "Well, because I did some like protocol 5 years ago and it worked really well for me. And so I just kept doing it." And so that's a rule that they have created for you that you still use. So now, yes, as we challenge it, it's going to create a more positive relationship with food and your body and whatnot. But again, we have to be aware that that is there. And even challenge what you define as a positive relationship. So going back to the fasting or the shakes or whatnot, if you're saying, I did that before and it worked really well for me, that's a positive relationship that you have with that particular diet that you did, or a positive aspect, right? I mean, think about it. If they're like, yeah, it worked for me, it's like, well, that's positive because it worked, right? We want everything to work. But then we're still doing it and it's not working. So it's conflicting. So that's where I would say yes, but a big but
that's
on that
good.
one.
So I'm like, what you're saying is recognize your distortions too around what is positive and what is not. So we have to know our rules. And for a lot of you, the rules that you have around diet culture are reinforced over and over again in the world.
Well,
and you may feel like this
annually.
Is true. Right. Or quarterly in our diet culture committee.
Yeah.
And you have to know the difference. And that's where education and like coaching comes in to be like, well, actually, here's the truth on that, and we're really good about even just like breaking it down from like a physiological, biological level. So good. Number 5, feel fullness, recognize different levels, encourages slowing down and checking in. So one of the ways my remix on this is, obviously at the Mindset of Matter, we do help women lose weight, right? And for some of the people I follow on intuitive eating, they're saying, no, this doesn't mean you can't lose weight per se. We're just not doing it in these very restrictive diet culture ways. And for us, I say, okay, there's 3 levels of fullness. For a lot of people, they have the hunger and fullness continuum. So for some people, I'll give them like words to help describe like how they feel from a hunger perspective. But 3 ways. If we are eating to a fullness where we're eating a little bit less than our body requires, we can do 10 jumping jacks after finishing our meal. And every one of these that I talk about is only about 3 to 5 bite difference.
Right.
Okay. So that would be kind of your, I am trying to eat a bit less in a calorie deficit. I'm trying to eat a calorie deficit. I'm just going to fucking call it out. If someone wants to talk shit, I don't give a shit. I get so angry about this. Number 2, you can't do the jumping jacks. You guys have already heard those. You can't do the jumping jacks, but I can get up and move around freely. That would be your maintenance. Okay. Number 3, I need to sit here for a sec because I've eaten in a surplus. Okay. Eaten more than I require. And if you do this all of the time, you will see a gain in maybe if you're looking at a surplus, muscle mass, you could see a gain in fat mass. Even when we put someone in like an actual surplus, they may see a small gain in fat mass. But those are my 3. Can I do 10 jumping jacks after this meal? Yes or no? If no, can I get up and move freely? Yes or no? If no, do I need to sit here? Right. And so from the hunger and fullness scale, that's going to look different. You have like 5 to 7 is your sweet spot where you should stop eating. If you're just describing it in words, it could be, I'm just making these up real quick. It could be, because this is based on my weekend, meals out with my girlfriend full, because we're always just picking little plates and picking off of them. And I could probably have another meal afterwards. We have eating with your family full, right? I'm just going to eat till I'm full and the kids are kind of doing things. So I get distracted. So I eat enough, but then I'm not going overboard. Or we have like Thanksgiving dinner full.
Right.
So just make it a bit easier for y'all.
There we go. All right.
Perfect.
Number 6, discover satisfaction favor. So let yourself enjoy cravings.
Discover satisfaction. That's what they wrote.
That's what they wrote in ChatGPT.
That's weird. Yes.
Double check.
Okay. Remix. Sorry, I'm hijacking this one.
Go for it.
Enjoy cravings. I hate that word.
I would say enjoy. Okay,
food.
So enjoy your
food. You say craving. It seems like this different thing.
Well, and like we all have craving, but why are we craving that? Is my question.
Your body will crave like fish if it needs more iron or more omega-3s.
Yes. So, but I would say most people don't know that. They just think like, oh, I'm craving again Oreos. Like, yes, is it because you're hungry and your body's looking for quick sugar, like to give you a little bit more energy because it's only 6 o'clock and you have to put the kids down and then you don't go to bed until 11?
And you haven't eaten all day?
You haven't eaten all day? Like maybe. I would say we need to rephrase this of let yourself enjoy less nutrient dense meals, or we can say let yourself enjoy the treats.
Pleasurable foods.
Pleasurable foods. There we go. That's what I want. Let yourself enjoy the pleasurable foods.
Enjoy the pleasurable foods.
Yeah.
Eat them and go back to what we're talking about. Eat them in a way that feels physically good to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. And a part of that, which we'll get to, is also creating an experience with that food, because oftentimes you just scarf it down and you don't realize
that you ate it.
Okay. Right. Taste buds are where?
In your mouth.
Correct. Okay, you can take the next one.
Number 7, cope with emotions with kindness. Address emotional eating to find alternative ways to cope with emotions. So yes, I think we like that. We would agree with this one because emotional eating is not going to solve how you feel. It only suppresses it and then it comes back up. So what are additional ways that we can deal with emotions? Going for a walk, taking care of ourselves, maybe like taking a nice hot bath, meditating, calling a friend, getting outside and kind of talking to yourself, maybe. Like that's my big one. It's exercise.
Riding the wave.
Riding the wave. Just sitting there, letting it feel. Maybe it's exercise, but in a like, not in a I'm going to beat myself up emotion, but more of like, okay, this is a self-care practice that I'm going to do right now. So yes, because if you continue to intuitive eating and emotional eating can be kind of one and the same. Like my body's telling me I want this, but I'm lacking the emotion identification. So therefore I'm going to suppress it. Whereas what we're asking you to do is create that boundary or that barrier between the emotion and the response and changing the response to something that serves you better, such as an alternative way to cope.
Absolutely. Love. Good. Respect your body. Accept your body without trying to change it for some idealized standard. Yeah. So
please see our body dysmorphia episode.
Yeah. So here's the thing again, and this is where I live in the middle. I will never put someone through a change in their body or a body transformation that is hurtful to them in any way.
Right.
Right. But our clients want to also lose weight.
Right.
Now, for most of them, they're not trying to fit this ideal standard. The same client, God, I have this, I should bring up the recording of our call. She said, I feel better when I'm at a lower weight. And I know that. And while, yes, I'm losing weight, that old program she was on would say that that's wrong. But she goes, my knees don't hurt as bad. I have more energy. I sleep better. I feel good. I maybe hold my head up high a bit more. And obviously our program deals with the mental health side of this. So our clients, work through what is true. Obviously the physical aspects of that are true for her. And what is more just, I'm holding my head up higher because I'm not killing myself, and I'm not punishing myself with, restrictive diets, and I'm not talking shit to myself, right? That can also be why she felt that way. But it is being able to do it without doing it in a harmful way. So for those of you listening, in our program, we do support weight loss as long as it's respectful for the body. Like, we're still respecting the body. What would you add?
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I feel like she's coming from, it sounds like the other coaching program put her in a shameful position to want weight loss. And over the weekend, I was talking to one of the providers, and she said, a lot of her people come to her because she is a promoter of health at every size. And there's a website that you can find providers that are associated with that group. And she said, but it's interesting because most of the time when we begin to talk, there is a mention of weight loss once they get more familiar. And so she goes, I'm happy to provide almost that space for them to come in because of their size. But there is usually a desire for weight loss. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it's even so, for example, I have a client that is doing a weight loss phase right now. And she she just feels like she went up the stairs a couple weeks ago, and she's like, I should not be this out of breath going up the stairs. And I'm like, I agree. If that is a measure of where you're at, and you're getting breathless going up 2 flights of stairs, or I don't know how many it was, and that to you is unacceptable, then that, that's okay. Right?
And that's not an idealized standard.
That's not an ideal. Well, and it had nothing to do with how she looked physically. It's more so how she felt doing the activity. And so then it becomes, you should be able to do that. I agree. And the alternative is to do nothing about it, and you continue to take the elevator. Right.
Right.
So now I'm not, I don't want to say dealing with, but I'm not practicing a goal that would change how I feel about myself when I walk in the door. Because it is embarrassing, to be huffing and puffing because you took the stairs and you're walking into work oh my gosh, and say it's only 2 flights and people are like, oh, 2 flights, if it's 30 flights, they're like, holy shit. But people,
I remember, I think I said this is part of my disordered exercise. If I didn't get to the gym, I walked up the 17 flights of stairs to my condo.
Oh yeah. I would have
be like,
I know. Okay.
So. Even my very fit ass at the time was dead.
Stairs will get you.
I know. I did the 9/11 challenge once, and someone next to me who was not conditioned to do it with a backpack on tried it, and I was like, maybe you should take the backpack off.
Yeah.
They do promote neutrality, which we do, and respect, which we do, and. I can read between the lines here. Accept your body without trying to change it for some idealized standard.
Right.
Right. That doesn't say don't try to change it, though, if you're respecting it. So I can read between the lines there, maybe. All right. Number 9, Coach Amanda.
Movement. Change from exercise. Change your form of exercise from weight loss and punishment to enjoyment. I agree. That's,
Also, intuitive eating, folks, you don't lose weight
through
exercising. So I don't know if you guys knew that.
But we have an episode on that.
Last one.
We'll make that short and sweet.
Perfect. Everyone's like, yep, that sounds like them. Number 10, honor health with gentle nutrition. Choose foods that make you feel good. Nutrition needs to be flexible, enjoyable, sustainable, and there are ebbs and flows over time. So that is our sustainable eating quadrant. We will link we have a one sheet on that now below. So you can, it's 2 sheets actually, but whatever. You can practice it. But we are respecting our bodies. Our bodies need vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, micronutrients. They need that. Health food is not diet food, or nutrient-dense food is not diet food. I'm sorry. It becomes diet food when that's all we're eating, right? You had the client who said, but I'm just not a chicken and broccoli person. People think that that's how you should eat if you want to lose weight. I don't want to eat chicken and broccoli. Gross. I know you do.
Not right now. Actually,
Yeah,
I just had some chicken nuggets before we hop back on.
I had some baked kettle chips.
Yeah, see?
They were delicious.
Jalapeno. The chicken nugs are delicious.
Just spit out of my mouth. Sustainable eating quadrant one more time. I don't care how many times I say this. Number 1, you're going to create a list in all 4. Number 1, we write down foods that are both nutritious and pleasurable. Okay. Number 2, we write down our pleasurable foods and we eat. So number 1, we want to eat as much as we can out of those foods. They're both pleasurable and nutrient dense. So let's see, for my blueberries, I love blueberries. They bring me pleasure and they're good for my body, right?
Yep.
Number 2, pleasurable foods. We eat them in a portion that serves our body physically. Obviously, pleasurable foods help us mentally. Number 3, we have nutrient-dense foods that are not pleasurable. We learn how to make those in a way to make them more pleasurable. And number 4, foods that are not pleasurable and not nourishing. We do want to reduce those. You don't have to cut them out. We want to reduce them because you're not getting anything from them. Like if these chips didn't taste delicious, those would be chips that I would cut out, but they're delicious. And I'm not a chip girl. So good job, baked kettle chips, whatever they are. All right. Very important. We've already kind of touched on this, but like, let's do,
recap.
Mindset of matter / mindset mirror connection systems to have in place in order for this shit to work. So we've already talked about creating a connection with the body, right? And doing that before food even gets involved, before we even have a morsel in our mouth. That's going to make it much easier for you to do this. And understanding your emotions, understanding your thoughts, all of that's going to help this process. So that's system number 1. We already gave you cues on that.
Yes. Trust in those cues. So understand the hunger and fullness and be able to say, oh, my body is telling me something. I don't need to ignore it.
Correct. Every time you do that, your body will respond and it'll be like, I think I explained, maybe did I tell you guys? Okay. So you guys are going to hear this all the time because we talk to people all day. We talk to each other all day. And then we talk on the podcast and we don't know what we talked about here versus someone we talked to versus someone else. It's so bad.
You know what's so funny? Someone, where was I? They were like, I think it was a client call last week. They said something and I was like I kind of looked at them like, how the fuck do you know that? And then they're like, it was on the podcast. I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Whoa. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Good to know. So remember I was sick, you guys, like 2 months ago, and I just kept saying I don't have a big appetite.
Yes.
Finally, like 2 weeks ago, I was like, I'm fucking hungry. It came back. And I was like, great, I'm going to eat. And I did. But I was perfectly fine with like having a very, very small breakfast in the morning. It was crazy because I love breakfast. It's my favorite meal of the day. Eat for nourishment, as we talked about. So a part of that is really understanding, again, coming back to sustainable eating is like, am I getting a good amount of fiber in? Am I getting enough protein in? And it doesn't have to be the 1 pound of protein per, whatever. You can just start at the minimums here if you need. Making sure we're getting enough carbs in to even carbohydrates help you think. Like 120 grams of carbs is what's necessary for like cognitive functioning. I don't know if that's still go ahead, girl. Go ahead. And then obviously fats help your hormones. So educating yourself to why you eat those things rather than, I think protein even gets a bad rap right now.
120 grams of glucose per day.
Booyah, motherfuckers. Protein seems to like get a bad rap of like, it's a diet food. No, it literally is how you build your body. Like not even like a physical physique, like aesthetically. Like your cells, your literal fucking cells.
What is that? The mitochondria.
Correct.
The mitochondria. Okay.
Systems.
We talked about this coping mechanisms that don't include food. So we have given you plenty of examples. There are plenty of examples in this podcast and other podcasts. So walking, meditating, riding the wave. So sitting with it, essentially, maybe going for a swim, talking to your partner about what you're thinking and feeling.
Mhm.
Journaling is a big one.
Journaling.
Listening to music, listening to a song that helps calm you, anything like that.
I want to say something. It's in self-care, the behavior is the things that Amanda talked about. It's the choice to do something more compassionate towards yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what self-care is.
Yeah.
Like, you could just decide to be like, I'm going to be more compassionate and not eat this food. And I think riding the wave is less behavioral. It's more emotional, right? It's a nervous system activity too. So whatever you do in regards to self-care is really the choice you made to do something that was more compassionate. That's what self-care is.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I like this one you put in here.
We need to be aware of where the fuck we are in life. Well, really though. So again, so for example, perfect example is yo. And yo as in Spanish, me. So
I was like, MTV Rap?
of me. Yeah. So, or I guess it would be me. Anyway, so in my 20s, I was tracking and then not tracking. Okay, that's fine. In pregnancy, I've been tracking. Immediately postpartum, I am not expecting to be tracking, but I'm going to focus on these intuitive eating principles. Now, am I going to do them perfectly? No, probably not. Is there going to be a time where maybe I don't honor my hunger and I wait to eat because I'm so distracted or I forget? Probably. And that's where, again, coming in and recognizing that and being aware of like, okay, am I more emotional now because I haven't been feeding myself? Or am I just emotional because of my hormones have changed so much? And so,
and I think that part too is going to affect your hunger and fullness cues.
oh, hell yeah. So it's hell yeah. So it's one of those things of recognizing in that postpartum period, there's going to be some differences that are occurring. I'm not going to do it perfectly, but we're going to try. Right. And then we can go back to
perimenopause.
But then perimenopause, yes. Like
perimenopause looks like postpartum, I feel like, but you're just not getting the hormones back.
You're just not getting anything. Well, and even in that's perimenopause, because that phase of life tends to be another challenge because again, parents are getting older, then kids are getting older. So you're in this dual parental role in a way, right? Like not that your parents need you to be their parent, but now you're taking on more responsibility as they decline. And so is tracking, for example, the best way for you? It may be too much time or energy or effort. Well, then how can we practice on this intuitive eating pace and keeping in and noticing again, same with postpartum, is it going to be perfect? Probably not. But we have hopefully worked on the things like we've talked about leading up to this place where there are opportunities for growth and development to make that time period easier for you where you truly are in this intuitive eating zone, I'll say.
Yeah. And for those of you listening, you might be thinking, is this for me? And this is definitely, intuitive plus, as we'll call it, our remix to intuitive eating is really just basing food off of that, off of your body's natural ability to tell you when it's hungry and it's full, which we've done since birth, right? It's much more sustainable. It can definitely help recreate the relationship you have with food, right? When we don't have all these rules on it, good, bad, so on, when we can listen to our body and eat portions in a way that serve us. It's funny because as I say some of these words, my brain goes, people are going to be triggered by the word portions. People are going to be triggered by the words proteins. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because it's just been eating in a nourishing way has just been villainized.
There we go.
A word.
I guess it is a word when you say it like that. Okay. Yeah.
You looked it up. It was a word.
I know, but it didn't sound like a word when you first used it. But now that you use it in that phrase, it's like, oh yeah, that is a word.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'm not going to talk. I'm not saying that with caution. We need to check where our feelings around such words come from.
Yeah.
What are other, why would it be helpful?
I would say to build a different relationship with food. So for example, maybe more towards your eating disorder clients that you work with, is maybe tracking has been an unsustainable way or has restricted them. And so now we're trying to recreate this relationship with food of how it makes me feel. What are things that make me full? What are things that, bring pleasure? But when I'm out on a date, maybe that before brought me anxiety, and trying to focus on that. But then even this is interesting because that, like you had said, starts from childhood of that relationship from food. So not only can I work on this as an adult and repattern my brain, so your neuroplasticity, but if I do have children, maybe this is a way that we can learn together and try together. Because I would say if you are going to intuitively eat and you haven't before, I think that's wonderful that you want to try that, but to take it as if you were a child going through this and giving yourself that empathy and grace. And then also, if you are doing it with your children, you're going to treat them in that way. And that's how you need to kind of treat that inner child that's trying to do this as well.
Love. I was also thinking, like, how fun would it be for you? So I gave those 3 types of fullness, like meal out with your girlfriends because you're just grazing and like sharing with each other. You have the meal out with family where we're kind of eating our whole meal, but might get a little bit distracted, so we're not overeating. And then you have Thanksgiving dinner. Like, what if you created those 3 with your kids, like based on their own like description
that
of
would
it?
be a good
How
idea.
cute! And each kid has their own.
That'd
be fun. So. I love working. I was such a good therapist when I worked with, I'm still a good therapist, but working with kids just because I'm like super creative. You should have seen, I had a affirmation tree. So I made a tree out of, what's the thick paper that's colored?
Thick paper that's colored. Oh, you know what? I know what it's called.
That you get off the big rack.
Cover stock?
No, the ones that you get off of the big, remember at school, they'd have the big, long, like
construction paper.
Yes.
There we go.
So I had an affirmation tree and it was made from the bottom of my floor to the top of the ceiling. And it was made of construction paper and had all these limbs. And then when the kids came in, I had all the leaves cut out and they had to write something good about themselves. And then my tree was full of affirmations. And I had and then so I have this big tree, and then I bought these butterflies. So then and I also had a hungry caterpillar. So then like the caterpillar came down, and then the butterflies were over here. I had the best fucking. I'll have to find a picture. I miss my little therapy office. Anyway, last but not least, it just is an alternative to like tracking and being obsessed with calories, and you're just getting back to, like we said, that. What has always been in you. This has always been there. You've just been conditioned to not listen to it. So that is that. Just a few practices that can be helpful here. So we gave you kind of all their rules and our remixes. One of the things I love is, like, especially with a pleasurable food, make that shit last as long as you possibly can while still tasting good.
Oh yeah.
My client this weekend, I was like, if you're going to eat it, put it on a plate.
Yes.
She went through like a bingey day.
Yeah.
And it was one of her worst binges. And I was like, okay, let's just start here. Like, if you want to eat it, put it on a plate. And I want you to set a timer. And I think our timer initially is like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And she was able to eat it beautiful. It looks so good. Pumpkin spice donut.
I'm not a donut girl.
It was like I'm a donut girl. That type of donut that has like the like cinnamon on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not like the glaze. I don't like glaze.
Yeah.
So, and also eat without distraction. So for parents, that's going to be difficult, but as much as you can, try not to be distracted. Don't be working and eating.
Or put their tablet away.
Yes. Oh, good job, Ma.
Yep. Okay. So my other thing that we like to do with this, and we've talked about that before, is setting a halfway point to the meal. So that doesn't, like, you can physically divide your plate. Here. Oh, there we go. You can physically divide your plate in half. Whether that's like I cut everything in half down the middle, or I take like a visual inquiry and say, okay, this is half. And then at that point, you can do a check-in. So that's a great opportunity to do a check-in. How am I feeling? Again, if it takes you another 2 to 3 minutes to figure out if you want more, maybe 3 to 5 more bites, totally fine. Like, remember, slowing down. We're not rushing through meals anymore.
And think about it from a bite to bite perspective.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Like, okay, So when I was eating the meal that we had after the day of like having the appetizers throughout the day, I got halfway through and I was like, I can't eat any more of this. Like I felt so full because it was very carb heavy too.
Yeah.
That I was just like, I can't eat anymore. And I thought, all right, I'll put this down. And if I want some more later, I'll get some.
Right.
And then I went back later because we got that Alfredo, the dark pasta from Oregano's. Have you had that?
No, Oregano's is on. I just don't feel like they're good anymore, to be honest.
Okay. Well, that's what we had in Flagstaff.
Yes.
So I was like, I sat there for a while. I was like, do I want this? Do I not want this? And then I said something. I was like, I'll come back again. And then I wasn't hungry. So good.
Did you get a dark pasta?
Alfredo the dark.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah. And then last but not least, we are let's try to do this without judgment. This is a new thing you're relearning because remember, we already knew it. And we want to just make sure that we are having that compassion and grace. You said it so brilliantly. The same compassion and grace you would have for your children learning this, like allowing that for that inner child. So awesome.
Yes.
What studies do we have, Miss Study Queen?
Okay.
Professor? What studies do we have, Professor?
I know. So this one was outcomes of intuitive eating interventions, and it was a meta-analysis. So for those of you who don't know, meta-analysis is gathering a bunch of individual studies and putting them together and seeing if there's a trend. So intuitive eating interventions change psychological processes that can be useful in promoting health behavior. Then these interventions contributed to positive changes on outcomes such as quality of life, body image, and body appreciation. So again, I think that goes into one of the principles of the trusting and building that trust more so than any of the other ones. Because if I can build the trust, I can appreciate what my body and my mind are doing to each other. And if I appreciate that, then again, what I say in my mind, I see in the mirror. So my body image.
Goodbye. Just kidding. Wait, not yet. Okay.
My body image changes as we go. The other one is intuitive eating and its influence on self-reported weight and eating behaviors. So these found that women who with a high intuitive eating score were likely to maintain their body weights and less likely to gain weight than those with the low intuitive eating score. So that's awesome, right? Because again, just like for us, like we talked about clients, we do have clients that do want to enter a weight loss phase. We do support weight loss phases. If you don't want to count calories and we food journal or other ways that we determine work for you in that goal, then this is an awesome way to say, okay, this is something that you can do without additional apps or like needs, right? So like I can intuitively eat without like MyFitnessPal or whatever any of the other calorie counters are. I can intuitively eat without having to take a picture on my phone, but I need to develop that. And so if I have that good relation, I don't want to say good relationship. If I have that progressing relationship with my body and its hunger signals, then I'm less likely to regain the weight as opposed to if I don't have that relationship and I haven't worked on the things that we've talked about going into this before, I'm more likely to regain the weight.
Absolutely.
So it was also the
Can I say one thing real quick about that study?
Yes.
When they're talking about weight gain, it's plus or minus 2 kilograms, which is roughly
not that much.
4 pounds.
4.4. Good job.
Yeah. So
math. But I would also say this too I didn't look at in depth of what is it 2 kilograms over the length of the study in general, like, or per month, per year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So flawed.
Go ahead with
skills.
The rest of it.
Intuitive eating leads to a reduction in maladaptive, so poor eating behaviors and overeating in frequency over time. So over time, my eating behaviors improve and my overeating tendencies improve by having less overeating incidences. So again, I think the thing here is over time is the big bold there, because again, it didn't just happen because I decided to intuitively eat today. And then lastly with this study is it's a promising strategy to address problematic eating behaviors and the challenges associated with controlling food intake and prevention of overeating.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good. Now, you guys, as we talk about this concept all the time, false confidence, as Amanda is saying, over time, you have to build this strategy back in.
Yes.
It needs to become something that it will take time and it will take practice. It will take conscious effort before it becomes unconscious. And a lot of people just assume that they can do it. I hear it all. I'm just going to intuitively eat. And I'm like, when I have this conversation with a client, I go, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is you feel like you can do this 100%, where are you in your ability to listen to your body and respond to your hunger and fullness cues? She gave it a 7. And I said, what would need to happen for you to feel an 8 out of 10? And then we had that conversation, and that's the support I would provide her. Mm-hmm. Right. So it becomes this buzzword that clients like to use in an effort to like tell me they don't, like, even people who no longer work with us. And I'm like, well, we haven't worked on intuitive eating per se, like in this way.
Yeah.
So tell me your experience with it. It's usually none. And then they're like, fuck, she's seen into me. And I'm like, did we not meet? Have we not met? I am pretty sure I know you. This buzzword of intuitive eating doesn't fly with me. So if you guys are listening, don't try to use it with me, because I will know if you're ready to intuitively eat probably before you do.
Probably.
Love you.
I would say most likely.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
That it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed our remix of intuitive eating, intuitive plus sustainable eating, whatever you want to call it. For those of you out there who follow this line by line, we're not saying your way is wrong. We just see it differently because we work with people who most likely need to start with just checking in with themselves. If you would like to work with us on this process, check out the show notes below for our Clarity Call link, which will set you up with one of our group coaching programs, group coaching or one-to-one. If you love this podcast, please subscribe to this podcast. We are over 100 subscribers on Spotify. We haven't hit 100 yet on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcasts. So please, please, please do that. And we haven't had a review since June. So if you guys just hate us, I mean, it's fine. But we're also working on some swag. So give us a follow on Instagram, The Mindset of Matter Coaching, fitbyamanda.az. Check out our YouTube page at The Mindset of Matter. And as always, if you want to really understand yourself, remember this one last thing.
What you say in the mind,
you see in the mirror. Bye.
Bye.